This DVD is not an instructional DVD. Its aim is to inform people about a kind of threat that is particularly insidious, but that, unfortunately, is more and more habitual in the streets: hidden weapons. These weapons represent a real danger, whether in the framework of a professional intervention or in a banal altercation. The examples that we're going to show later must therefore serve to develop a reflex of vigilance and prudence in each person who finds him or herself in a conflictive situation. At the end of this DVD, some techniques will be found illustrating the responses of the professional methods facing this threat. You will see sequences where the officers make contact with an armed delinquent. We insist on the fact that, facing an armed person, the conduct necessary to have, a professional or not, consists firstly of putting the maximum distance between oneself and the individual. This distancing allows one to examine the situation and decide on the reaction: escape, or the elaboration of an intervention scheme if one is a professional and one has one or various colleagues for support. Whatever the situation might be, it is necessary not to ever lose sight which, in a conflictive situation, if negotiation or escape are not possible and the confrontation is inevitable, is essential to assure oneself of seeing the aggressor's hands and to do everything possible to verify that he is not carrying weapons or objects capable of taking on this role. The FFBD Self-Defense Training Federation of Defense Batons and Self-Defense will not be considered responsible for the use of the techniques presented on this DVD, nor of the consequences that could result from them. Danger of an intervention alone. The experience of the security professionals have made evident the risk of overexposure when one intervenes alone facing a suspicious individual. For this reason, to resolve this problem, it is preferable to use the notion of strength and to confront a lone individual with at least 2 officers. In this example, the suspect has numerous support points with the wall. It would therefore have been preferable to ask him to lie face down and with his hands behind his back before any contact. Pointed high heel of a woman's shoe. The pointed heel of a shoe is utilized in this scene as a weapon. They are very dangerous because they allow one to aim at the head, the eyes, or the throat, which are vital areas for the human being. Knife taken out from the ankle. Another weapon difficult to discover, the knife in the ankle. The danger is found in the fact that the weapon is covered by the delinquent's clothes and that it is very difficult to discover it before he grabs it. Achilles heel cut and stab to the thorax.
Vous allez pas bien? Ça va pas? Monsieur? Monsieur? J'arrive. Ah! Ah!
A new illustration of the danger that intervening alone represents. In this sequence, the officer goes to make contact with the individual when he doesn't see either the hands or an entire side of his body. Once again, the delinquent has only to wait for the officer to get close in order to utilize his knife. Taking out of pen blade. Here you have another kind of hidden blade. This time the blade is found hidden in a pen. Very sharp. It can be used as a cutting edge or to stab. Femoral stab attack.
Bonjour, excusez-moi, je peux passer ici. La cuisse.
Here, too, is the femoral vein that one aims at in order to puncture it with the pen blade. Stab attack to the eye. Another privileged area for the delinquents who use this kind of weapon, the eyes and the neck. Taking out lipstick. Here, a lipstick knife whose blade is released by twisting. This weapon, hidden in a perfectly normal object for a woman, is much more dangerous because it doesn't trigger suspicion a priori. Releasing the blade. When the cap is removed, the action is very rapid. Small, this weapon is easily hidden in a hand. Cutting attack to the face.
Bonjour, restez pas ici s'il vous plaît. Circulez,
The parts of the body most often aimed at with this kind of weapon are the throat and the face, in order to provoke important injuries or at least a state of shock in the injured person. Drawing the knife from the belt behind. Among the hidden weapons that professionals often find, the belt knives are particularly frightening. In effect, carrying them in the belt facilitates their accessibility by small movements of the hands that are very difficult to perceive. Drawing the weapons and cuts. This kind of belt knife is extremely dangerous because it is, by its very conception, studied to force the failure of cuffing. Taking the arm behind the back during cuffing facilitates the grabbing of it in the hand and the hiding of the blade until its surprise use. Use during handcuffing.
Monsieur, tournez-vous. Contrôle la voiture.
Et vous faites mal, vous faites mal. Regardez-moi.
Donnez-moi votre main.
At real speed, you can judge the speed of this technique. Extreme vigilance is required in order to be able to work with the maximum possible safety. Application in complete cuffing.
Eh monsieur, contre la voiture. Mettez-vous contre la voiture. Allez, bouge pas. Bougez pas. Bougez pas.
Another equally fatal application. This time, the individual, completely handcuffed, takes advantage of a momentary lack of attention to take out the knife from his belt and aim at the femoral vein of the officer. Taking out the claw ring. Here you have a particularly perverse and dangerous weapon, the claw ring. On the top of the hand, there is only the normal aspect of a ring to be seen. However, inside it has a frightening claw, sharpened like a scalpel. The danger is found here in the fact that, even with the hands open and the fingers separated, one can't see the claw if the hands are presented with the palms covered. Utilization of the claw ring.
Monsieur, bonjour. Vous restez pas ici, vous êtes sur une propriété privée. Venez avec moi, vous êtes sur une propriété privée, je vous dis. Ah, 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 ah.
In this sequence, all the danger of the claw ring appears. It is almost impossible for the sole officer to see that the individual's hand is hiding a weapon. The delinquent only has to wait for the officer to come to grab him in order to cut him on the wrist and the throat. Telephone card with razor blade. The telephone card that has a razor blade stuck into it is a particularly fearful weapon in the context of an identity control. In effect, simulating obeying orders, the delinquent accesses his weapon. Subway ticket blade and the telephone card with blade. Another kind of extremely dangerous weapon, the razor blade stuck between two subway tickets. Once again, the danger is found in the fact that the delinquent gets hold of his weapon while seeming to obey the officers. Utilization during an identity control.
Monsieur, bonjour, vos papiers, s'il vous plaît. Vous avez vos papiers?
The danger of this kind of weapon appears in this sequence. The officer gets too close to the individual that he's controlling and doesn't, in fact, maintain any security distance that allows him to avoid the strike. Utilization of sharpened keys.
restez pas là. Ne restez pas là.
Some simple keys, which on the other hand are sharpened by the delinquent in order to provoke greater injury, can be very dangerous. In effect, once again, the officer who gets too close to the individual is found immediately at a distance that doesn't allow him to either anticipate or avoid the strike that his aggressor gives him. Key holder, brass knuckles. Certain hidden weapons present themselves in the form of necklaces or decorative objects like this key holder that is really a set of brass knuckles. Once again, the apparent banality of the object doesn't attract attention, which makes it even more dangerous. Belt revolver. As we've seen before, weapons that are placed in clothing are very difficult to detect. However, some of these weapons are firearms, such as this belt pistol. Utilization during questioning.
Second jour. Bon, vous avez rien à faire ici.
This sequence illustrates all the importance of always watching the hands of an individual in order to be ready to react in case of suspicious movement. Hat with hooks. The hat ringed with hooks is a difficult weapon to discover. It's integrated into the clothing and doesn't attract attention in any way. A lone officer has very little possibility of detecting it, especially because the hooks are found in the back part of the hat. The delinquent will then be able to utilize his hat in order to catch the neck or the face of his victim, later being able to strike him, taking advantage of the state of shock provoked by the injury caused by the hooks. Hat with razor blades in the peak. Hats can serve to hide hooks, but certain delinquents also use them to sew razor blades into the peak. Again, the danger of this kind of hidden weapon is found in the fact that it is camouflaged in an apparently inoffensive object that doesn't trigger any kind of suspicion. Utilization during an identity control. Example of the use by the delinquents of a hat with razor blade in the peak. We can observe that the way of wearing the hat with the peak backwards facilitates the grabbing and use of it. Once again, if the officer doesn't respect the security distances, he reduces his possibilities of reaction. The individual will try to strike the officer in the face to take advantage of the state of shock that his attack would provoke. Taking out a lighter knife. Lighters are objects that have to attract attention. They can, in fact, hide blades very easily and are found on sale in a number of countries. Utilization of the lighter knife.
Second jour. On va rester ici, vous êtes sur un privé. Vous avez quoi dans la main? D'accord, bon, vous y allez, s'il vous plaît. Allez-y. Allez-y, je vous dis.
In this sequence, the individual creates a diversion with his cigarette before sticking the blade of his lighter knife in the throat of the officer.